Welcome to the Life Giving Leader Podcast. Well, hello, everyone. Good to hear from you again, or good for you to hear from me. I don't know. Maybe it's both and. But Tyler Reagin here, your host of the Life Giving Leader Podcast. And as this week of podcast has continued to roll on, we're going to close it out with a great friend of mine, someone who has literally lived out this conversation about leading things you didn't start. Josh Surratt, Pastor Josh Surratt, who is the pastor of Seacoast Church in Charleston, South Carolina, multiple campuses. Actually replaced and inherited the church from his dad. His dad, Greg Surratt, is still around, big central part of ARC, which is the church planting network, and Seacoast has been just an amazing church. Brandon Lake, the worship leader for Bethel, and is on a bunch of elevation music, and Seacoast Music is also a worship leader there. And I got a funny story for you there in just a second, but we are winding down season 2. We've got one more episode after this with the one and only Kevin Queen, who I've been friends with 20 plus years and is the pastor of Cross Point Church in Nashville. So that'll be coming up sometime next week. And, I'm not going to add a whole lot, but let me give you the lay of the land again. For those of you that remember from the beginning of the week, I'm leaving in the morning to St. Simons, Georgia in Frederica Club to play golf with my buddies, many of which I've known since high school, and this will be our 22nd year. And so I'm your defending champ, and I'm excited to see if I can defend and go back to back. So I will keep you posted soon enough about that, and keep following along on Instagram, and I'll give you some updates there. But one other thing I just want to mention, and Josh and his dad had really been central and really important in the conversation that we've had around 1010 with Darren Patrick. Darren Patrick is the pastor who took his life via suicide last year. That was really the catalyst for Josh and I to decide to do a 1010 project, because Darren was a friend of ours. Darren was doing a thing called Pastors Collective. And I don't remember if we talked much about this in the interview, but it was just a really important piece of the puzzle, and they're doing some great stuff. They've got this killer retreat center now. There's places that are really trying to serve pastors, and the other day I saw a pastor's wife from California also took her life in the same way. And I want to say to you, if you're listening and you're a pastor or you're a business leader or you're a female leader who's frustrated with all the layers that come with that, please ask for help. Find some community. Reach out to us at 1010project.com and see if there's ways we could work together. I've got an announcement coming up pretty soon where we might be able to get you into the on-site experience we've been talking about for a discounted rate, and it would be a faith-based version with our group. So if that's something you might be interested in, would you just send me a DM at Tyler Reagin, and we might see if we can't squeeze you in at a discounted rate and get you a part of a killer on-site experience. So my point is, get some help, talk to somebody, and please, please, please don't let these things and this isolation and COVID and all the things keep you from being okay. And so I just say that as I set up this interview with Josh Surratt. He has done an amazing job of taking over for his dad. He loves people so incredibly well, and I'm one of the people that he has loved incredibly well. And so I'm thankful for Josh and his family, and just praying that this conversation will be helpful to many of you leaders who are stepping in to lead something you didn't start. So, Life-Giving Leader Podcast listeners, here's my friend, Josh Surratt. Welcome back to the Life-Giving Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Reagin, and today I have a friend of mine, Josh Surratt, on the, I haven't decided what I call it, Josh, and I've been doing this for 2 years, on the line, on the Zooms, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But Josh, thanks for joining me all the way from Charleston, South Carolina.
Man, I'm honored to be here. Love you. And yeah, whatever we're doing, I am here where you are, and it's going to work.
So before we get too far, the PGA Championship is coming up at the Ocean Course in Kiowa. Are you going? That's really important to me.
I will 100% be there for part of it. No question.
That's good to know.
I am of the opinion, we have the Masters just a couple hours north of us too in Augusta. And so maybe that's west of us, but I have the opinion you want to be there on Thursday or Friday, but the best place to watch Sunday is on your TV in your living room. So,
well, I played Ocean Course the year before the last PGA Championship, 2012, and it is a really difficult golf course. Always ranked in the top 5 in the country.
Listen, whether you like golf or not, you just need to pray for high wind because it will humble those guys in incredible ways.
Incredible. So, Josh, you are at Seacoast Church in Charleston, South Carolina, which is one of my favorite cities in the world. We honeymoon there. We go there every time we get a chance. And apparently one of my favorite restaurants in the world shut down, Justine's, and that's really kind of sad.
That brings sad. This whole quarantine thing and makes it personal, doesn't it? To know that you're not gonna have that meatloaf or mashed potatoes.
So give us a little bit, for those that don't know you, Josh, give us a little bit of your background and how you got to where you're sitting now.
So yeah, I serve as a lead pastor of a church here called Seacoast. Our family planted it 33 years ago. And my dad moved our family from Northern Illinois. At the time, I was about 7 years old. And so I always tell people when I'm doing our leadership classes or newcomers or growth track stuff that for about the first 10, 15 years, I was just extra baggage along for the ride. But eventually God got a hold of my heart and I fell in love with our church. And I began to serve in student ministry and never aspired to leading this thing. In fact, when my dad first told me, it was so funny. And those of you who lead things that you didn't start can relate to this, but I was actually asking him to help me out with a message that I was preaching that weekend and met with him on a Saturday. And he, at the end of our time together, he said, "Hey, I just want you to know," I was probably 27 years old at the time, that I had to fill out an insurance form. We had to answer who would take this thing over if I were to get hit by a bus or train or whatever. And we all agreed it would be you. And I won't use the exact words that I used for him because I don't know if you allow language like that on your podcast.
I do. I'm fine with it.
What's wrong with you guys? You know, there's 100 people I would gladly serve here, but I never aspired to be in this seat. But over time and over a number of years, it became clear not only to the team here, but also to me that God was calling me to step into this role. And so I was 34. It's been almost 8 years ago now that Dad really. It was a result of him having some vision for the rest of his life to get involved with ARC, to become the president of ARC, to begin to serve pastors in a different way, that he realized that he wasn't dreaming about Seacoast anymore. He loved Seacoast, but he wasn't dreaming about it. And rather than fight that, he said, "I think this is God. I think this is transition. So we're going to ask you to jump in and take it over." And 8 years ago, took over a fairly healthy church. If he were in the room, I would say I had to dig it out of the ditch and get it back on the rails. But God has been super faithful in the process, and we've learned a ton of stuff along the way, and made some major changes, but also kind of kept some things that were healthy going. And so all of this stuff, I love what you're doing with this podcast for guys like me, and it's not just guys that took over lead roles, but men and women who are leading in areas or in charge of areas that they didn't start. It's been so helpful listening to your content. So thanks for having me on, man.
Well, of course. So. Just a brief side note for those who may hear us talk about ARC on and off, and I've talked about it with some different guys. Can you just give a quick overview of what ARC is for those listeners that don't know ARC?
Yeah, man. ARC was born when my dad and Billy Hornsby were on a golf course. Billy's passed away now. And Billy asked him, "What's the dream in your heart?" And Dad said, I want to plant 2,000 churches in my lifetime. And at that point, we had planted 3. We were 1 for 3. Seacoast was still going okay. The other 2 had already closed. So it was a pretty lofty goal. And so ARC stands for Association of Related Churches. It's not a denomination. It's a network of relationships. And we want to come alongside pastors who have the dream in their heart to plant a church and resource them to make it happen. And we've launched now close to 1,000 churches. We're somewhere in the 950 range. And so it's looking like we're going to hit that 2,000 churches in his lifetime goal. And ARC has become, I think, something much bigger than anybody initially dreamed it would be. And so it's a group, it's a coaching group. They kind of really help you figure out how to get the launch right. And when your first 2 churches were Pastor Chris Hodges of Church of the Highlands in Birmingham, and then Pastor Rick Bizette at New Life Church in Conway, Arkansas. They both did pretty good.
Yeah.
And so they've been great prototypes and examples for other churches to look at. Hey, how did they do their launch? And what does the fundraising thing look like? And how do we, and so now kind of 20 years into it, Dad has shifted a good bit of his focus. We still are planting a ton of churches, but he's kind of going, okay, these pastors now have been at it for a while. How can we help keep them healthy, which I know is something that you're passionate about as well. So.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute too, because you and I both share a heartbeat, and your dad of just serving pastors well and leaders well. And you guys were very connected to one of the moments and events that have shaken all of us to go, we've got to do something for our friends. Yeah. Let's go back to this for a second. So what was a few of your thoughts or emotions, Josh, the first day you drove in when you took over and you were going, wait, I'm coming in. I just changed roles. I'm taking over for Dad. What were some of those things you were thinking?
Listen, man, my main thought was, who wants to follow like Coach K, right? You want to be the guy that follows the legend. You don't ever want to follow him. So a lot of insecurity, if I'm just being real honest with you, a lot of, man, this is a lot of pressure. And it wasn't just on that day. It was conversations we've been having for years leading up to it. And so I had to really get to a point. And for me, it happened in kind of a spiritual way. I was sitting on the front row at a First Wednesday, and I felt like God put a word in my heart, like in that moment. And it was like, get up and get on the platform right now and share this thing that God put in your heart. And I came back down and I was like, man, I feel like in some way God delivered me from the fear of, or the need of doing a good job, and gave me a burden and a vision for his people to realize, man, there may be 10,000 of them. There may be 20 of them. There may be one sitting in my living room, but I want to help people. I want to be a person who would bring hope to those people. But man, there's all kinds of insecurities that come along with stepping into a role like that. And I had to sort of go, okay, whether the church grows or not, I want it to, because I want to reach people, and I'm going to do my very, very best, but I've got to almost surrender the success or failure of this experiment to God, because I knew that it was too much for me to carry. And I knew that if it did grow, I didn't want that side of it either. I didn't want to, for any moment, think that it was about me, but it's just about stewarding what God has given me and trying to do the very best job of doing that. Obviously, when you ask that question, there are a lot of things that come to mind. Comparison, like not only am I following a leader, but it's my dad. And it just feels like, man, those are big shoes to step into. And I know I'm not my dad, and there's some things that were similar, but there's some things that were real different. Right. And so it took me a while, but I had to figure out that, man, if I can't do this in my own skin, think about David and Saul's armor, right? Like if I can't do this in the way that God has wired Josh to do it, then I'm out. But because I just can't try to be somebody that I'm not, or try to be a version of somebody else. And so I really had to get to a point where in my soul, it was like, dude, you just do the very best job of stewarding what God has called you to do and the way that he's wired you. And a lot of things that I thought of as weaknesses, I've learned in these last 7 years were actually like God inspired, purposed design.
It's that uniqueness of yours, isn't it?
Yeah. And like, so you think about my dad and some of these kind of guys that have built these huge churches, there's just almost like, for them, they walk into the room and they are the vision. Like God spoke to me and we're going to go do that. And I never felt like that kind of a guy. I'm much more collaborative in nature. And it's funny now, I thought of that as a major weakness. And there were times I felt like I had to act like I was more of that kind of a guy than I am. And the longer I'm in this, I'm like, actually what Seacoast needed in this season, God knew what he was doing. He needed a more collaborative leader in this seat for this season. And so I've come to terms that I didn't get a lot of say in the family that I was born into and the unique wirings that God gave me. And so rather than apologize for that or try to compensate for that, I'm just going to try to utilize the gifts that God's given me the best of my ability.
Yeah. I mean, that's my whole first Life-Giving Leader book is about that uniqueness. Because what Seacoast didn't need was you trying to be your dad, right? Like God had called Josh to lead. One of the things that is unique about this, Josh, is you talk about,
and I would say this is one of my favorite attributes of you as a leader, is just the humility and the honor with which you carry yourself. You are constantly raising and putting other people ahead of yourself. And I think it's incredibly honoring and noble that you do that. How did you and your dad have conversations when you talk about there were some things that were off the rails that need to get back on the rails? How did you approach that with him when you needed to make changes? Did you feel like you had to run things by him? Did you not? How did you navigate that early on?
Yeah, early on, I felt like I had a safety net. I felt like I had one of the country's greatest coaches of pastors that just didn't have the margin or time to be here all the time,
right?
But was always accessible to me. And so and that relationship has changed a good bit. When we first made the transition, he didn't show up to a staff meeting for a year. Like, he just wasn't around the office. He really pulled away, part by necessity of his involvement with ARC, but we just didn't see him a ton. And so most of the things I just kind of did and went with. But if it was a major thing at that point, I had a lot of honor and respect for the fact that God had used my dad to build this thing for the last 25 years. And I'm not going to go make some sweeping, massive change without running it by him and getting his feedback on it. And so part of it is that humility of, waking up every day feeling like I'm in over my head right now, just to do what God's called me to. And then you throw, of course, this last year, pandemic and all these wrinkles at it. And so I was quick to go, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Tell me what you think about it. And he had a lot of wisdom to go, hey, this is what I would do. But man, whatever you do, I'm 100% for you. And this is why. And it was good. It was good for me. Here's what I would say, Tyler, to those who are in this type of transition. I think when you have the culture right, which is really that relationship, I honored the heck out of my dad. And it doesn't matter if it's your dad or somebody who's not there anymore, but if you can honor the past, because you wouldn't have a job right now if it weren't for the past that led you to this moment. So honor them. And dad really had a posture of, I think about Saul and David, right? You had that transition where Saul was like, everybody knew it was time for transition except him. And I think that's where things fall apart when it comes to transition. But David leveraged all of his resources and relationships so that Solomon could one day, build the temple in that particular story. But he knew that it was his job and his season was to leverage the wisdom, leverage the relationships, and use them for the next generation to win at an even greater level than what they did. And dad did a great job with that. And I feel like we could sit here and talk strategy, and I've done that with a lot of different people. And I think if you have the culture right, you can make 1,000 errors in strategy and it still work really well. But if the culture is wrong, if you got a leader that's not leaving soon enough, if you've got a leader coming in that's more like Absalom, where he's taking something that hadn't been given to him, then you can execute a perfect strategy and this thing's not going to work. And so for me, that's all been about honoring that relationship and recognizing that, man, the better that and the stronger that relationship is, even if he had moved away, any of that, but you're not going to hear me badmouth unless he's in the room, because it's our love language is sarcasm, but you're not going to hear me, badmouth the history here. It's been such an honor to step into this role, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. So how did you got all these, you step in, you got all these, now you had been on staff, so you knew a lot of people, but they were your dad's people, most of them, right? So how did you, in a sense, get them on board with your leadership for that early season?
That's such a good question. And I think there are certain people that we really needed to get on board. And I think when you step into a role, if you're kind of clean slate, wiping it says something, at least for me, it would have said something about how insecure I was as a leader, that I need to have all of my guys around me. But I'll also say there were some people that we didn't know it right away, but that really did need to transition. And so what I tried to do is I tried to have, in transition in general, that you need more communication. You need more time with each other. And so when we're making a massive transition like this, I just try to spend a lot of time with people who'd been here for a long time. And it became clear after a while, man, this is somebody that we need to fight for. I think about Sam Lesky, who got saved at Seacoast at 27 years old. At this point, he was leading our Dream Center. He started our first Dream Center, and he was kind of, they call him Rev up there, coach of the football team. And we love Sam and Joan, but Sam was pretty burned out in his job and was thinking, man, this is probably a good time for me to leave and go do something else. But as we pulled close to them, we realized, man, we really need them. We need them for their friendship, for what they bring to the table. We also need them for the credibility that a Sam and Joan saying, hey, we're on board with this next leg with Josh and Lisa, what that says to their relationship sphere and all of that. And so we just got close to them, got into their heart a little bit, began to dream and pray a little bit about what their future would look like. And now he leads all of our campus pastors. Yeah. But it was just time. It was old-fashioned dinners at the house. Hey, what's going on? Okay, you're thinking about transitioning. If that's the case, we want to make sure we're still tight and we're still friends through that process. But being available to them to process some of that, to where he came back and said, can I spend the rest of my career, working with you and making this happen? And then there were other ones that as we did that, we realized this is God. It was God for Dad to transition it, and it's God for you to go too. And so my conversation was, you and I both signed up to follow God through Greg, right? Yeah. You didn't sign up for this and I didn't sign up for this. And so let's have honest conversations. I want you to take the journey with me. But if God has called you out, then let's be adults about it and let's love each other through it. Right. I'm not going to, but like in the case of Sam, if God's calling you on, man, you got to give me the freedom to lead as Josh would lead, not as my dad. And so those were healthy conversations, and many of them turned out with people re-upping, and many of them turned out with people moving on to what their next was. And it's been healthy in both cases.
Yeah. And I've just loved you've just done such a good job, Josh, for real. And I think humility is very central to that. Let's switch gears for just a second as we kind of wrap up a little bit. Last year around this time, we lost a friend, very close friend of yours. I had become, friends with Darren, and that was a really powerful and sad and horrible loss of a friend, a pastor. And you and your dad, and, there's a group of us guys and leaders that just love pastors and love leaders and care about them. How has being a year from Darren Patrick losing Darren, how have you grown in that? What has been stirring in you for the last year that is things God's continuing to call you to step into?
Yeah, man, it's so hard. And like you said, just such a good friend. We were on the phone hours before he took his life, and it really blindsided me in a lot of ways. But I think it's really driven me to go, if we can't do what God's called us to do, again, whether that's leading a business or managing a group of people or leading a church, if we can't do it and be healthy, then I'd rather find something else to do. I don't think it's God's design, to call people into ministry so that they would burn out or so that they would, lose their family in the process. I don't think anybody's going to be getting high fives in heaven of, man, right, what a great church you built. I know you had to sacrifice your entire family for that. Like, it's not his heart for us.
Doesn't work that way.
Yeah. And so it's like, man, I think it's possible to do both. And I think it's possible to live out a brand of leadership and a brand of Christianity that we can make a difference, and let's be kingdom minded and let's build churches. I want our churches to grow, but man, let's do it in a healthy way. Yeah. Let's not, as Jesus said, gain the whole world, build big churches, but lose our soul, lose our heart, lose who we are. And so if anything, I feel like part of why our friendship is so strong, Tyler, is because we share that burden that my dream isn't to build a big church. My dream is to do ministry for decades with people that I love. And I hope we make a big difference, but ultimately, like, the fertileness of the soil is out of our control, right? We can only do what God's called us to do. And so if I can go, you know what? Because to have a friendship for a decade takes working through some tough stuff, honest conversations. And so my hope is that we could create a culture here and be a part of a group of pastors that are creating a culture outside of just Seacoast, but around the country, around the world, where guys have the freedom to be who they are, to have some friendships that they can share when they're in a tough spot, and that we go, man, we're in this for the long haul. Yeah. So that means the hard days, we're going to be ones that come close versus, move on to a new relationship. And so I think it's possible, man. I think it's possible to build great kingdom churches and also build healthy, strong kingdom leaders.
Yeah. If there's a leader listening, Josh, that either a pastor or business leader who right now is just going, I'm either on the edge of burnout, I don't know who to talk to, I'm struggling with some stuff, what would be one good first step for them to take, in your opinion?
Well, one, welcome to the club. Like it's just comes with the territory of leadership. It's exhausting, especially in this last year. And so sometimes the old adage of misery loves company. Just know that you're in a group of you're on a podcast listening and connecting with leaders who know what it feels like to be on the edge of burnout. And I think the biggest thing, it's ARC's kind of tagline is don't do ministry alone.
That's right.
Don't do ministry alone. And the problem is, especially in a church or in an organization, if your primary and only source of friendship is people in your church, you get burned enough times where they leave or they get mad at you or they walk away, and you start to think, maybe I can't trust anybody. And so I think you can have good friends in your church, by the way, and we do, but I think it's healthy to find a group of peers and just get with them. And it usually takes a big risk, whether it's jumping into what you guys are doing with your organization or with Refuge, or we've started something here in Charleston, the Pastors Collective. It's kind of stepping out of your comfort zone and going, hey, I need some friends. And it's amazing what God does when people come together and just get honest about where they are. And so I would say, don't do it alone. Find a friend. Call me or Tyler. We'll help you find friends.
All right.
You're not in it.
Couple lightning questions. We'll wrap this up. You ready for this?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Best marriage advice you guys have been given?
Best marriage advice. I would say date weekly, dialogue daily, and depart quarterly. Like that's our deal. Date night happens every week. We talk every day, and we get the heck out of Charleston, even though we love the city as much as we can, if not quarterly, every other year.
So this you might be able to answer this because you're in Charleston. There's so much good food there. But if you could pick one meal tonight that no matter where it is, but you're getting it tonight, it's one of your favorites, what would that be?
It's probably going to be shrimp and grits, man. I'm here in the South, and some of you haven't heard of that. But it's a marriage. It's kind of like a French kiss. If you explain the mechanics of it, it doesn't sound like it's going to work. Putting grits with shrimp, but when you're in it, it feels right, man.
That's not the first time you've used that illustration, is it?
For shrimp and grits, it is. I've used it for
fair enough. Favorite movie of all time?
Oh, dude, I'm a little bit old school. I would and it's not old school, by the way.
Yeah.
I would admit to having watched that, but I would say the Hoosiers, man. Just good old college basketball, Midwest.
It's good. All right, and then last one is, if you could only listen to one band for the rest of 2021, you listen to all their music, but just one band, who would that be? Or songwriter, or whatever,
I'm going to go local here. Some people in our church, but Need to Breathe. Bear Reinhardt is a good friend, and I love their music. It's always on Spotify for me. So
that's great. Well, Josh,
Brandon Lake, obviously.
But Brandon's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
He's at least whatever's happened with Brandon in the last 2 years has been a years of faithfulness, and it's pretty amazing to see God reward that. But hey, same to you, man. As you have led, I'm just proud to call you friend, and proud to call you the kind of leader that I believe brings life to people. So thank you for being a part of the podcast, and thanks for the way you've been an example of leadership.
Thanks, Tyler. It's been an honor to be on it with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. Man, I love that guy so much. If you want to follow Josh, you can follow him at Josh Surr on Instagram, just Josh, S-U-R. Or you can keep up with Seacoast at seacoast.org and hear everything, find everything, listen to Josh's messages. He is the real deal and is just honoring in the way that he transitioned from his dad's leadership, and still honors his dad as a part of an incredible church movement called ARC. And I'm just grateful for him and the way he loves people. And so thankful for you guys. This week of podcast has been a lot, but it's been really fun. And hopefully in this next, 4 weeks, we're going to get you some updates on the future of this, what's going on, things we're working with, 1010 Project, any of the personal stuff I've got going on for Life Giving Company. And look forward to staying in touch. So we'll talk soon.